So the other day I had a small project going, nothing fancy, and I pulled up a quick YouTube video to see how someone else does it, get some ideas. And for a moment, that's all it was. Then my mind switched gears, and somewhere between, oh, that's a clever trick, and look how good his turned out, I stopped learning and I started measuring. And then that little voice chimes in, oh, mine won't turn out nearly that nice. Why do I even bother? Comparison doesn't kick the door in, it just slips into the room like it belongs there. Negative thoughts don't mean I'm broken, they mean I'm human. But I want to notice the moment that learning turns into measuring because that's where the joy starts leaking out. So, this shows up for me with hobbies all the time. Watercolor painting is a perfect example. I start for enjoyment, relaxation. Of course, I want to, get better at it. So compare my early attempts to someone else's polished results, either at the art club or on YouTube. And I hear that little voice again. Oh, you're never going to get this. You're never going to be that good. And suddenly the hobby starts to feel a little heavy, a little discouraging. Not because the hobby is wrong, but because my thinking got noisy. Comparison is a sure way to lose the joy of learning, especially in the beginning. You know, Learning from other people is fine. It's that quiet pivot when learning turns into a scoreboard or a ruler. That's what wrecks it. So real life is messy. That's normal. But when you're looking at stuff online, you almost always see the finished product, the best angle, the highlight reel. So if I measure my real life against somebody else's best moment, yeah, the math is rigged right from the start. I'm not mad at anybody. I just know what my brain does with it. It turns inspiration into a verdict. So when I feel behind, like I'm not measuring up, I try to ask, behind what? It's not a competition because a lot of the time I'm chasing a standard I never agreed to. So I keep coming back to this. Don't measure yourself with somebody else's ruler. Measure yourself by what really matters. Am I being kind? Am I putting in an honest effort? Am I treating people well? Am I enjoying myself? That's a ruler I can hold. That's a ruler that matters to me because of my grandkids. I don't want them watching a grandpa who's always grading himself, always not enough, always comparing and falling short. I want them to see something steadier. I want them to see an Opa who can enjoy learning, a person who can be happy for someone else without turning it into an insult to himself. A man who can keep going imperfectly without making it a judgment on my own worth. I'm still learning this. I'm not aiming aiming for perfection. I'm trying to catch the pivot sooner and pull it back into reality. If I'm going to measure myself, I want it to be by a ruler that makes me a better man to live with and a better grandpa for them to watch. And if you've got grandkids, maybe this is the question to ask. What would I want them to learn from how I treat myself? So give that some thought. If you've got any thoughts on that, drop it in the comments. If you're new here and enjoy this kind of honest, quiet conversation, please consider subscribing and join us again. So see you next time.